I'm going to try and make this one brief. It's going to be hard because we're talking about how Israel was formed, okay? And everything I'm going to tell you I read about in various history books. One of them in particular called Modern Times by Paul Johnson. Paul Johnson, very Anglo-Saxon, waspy type of name, right? So he's the one reporting all this, and I'm just regurgitating it, okay? 1,200 pages of a book called Modern Times by Paul Johnson. In it are all the major events of the last century, political, war, social, whatever. So here, combined with my knowledge from another book, which I can't remember, but it doesn't matter. See, Israel, the formation of Israel was something that was long in the coming. It was like back in the 1880s when like the Deutchbank, the owners of the Deutchbank were Zionists. I know this because one of them was my ancestor, Ludwig Bamberger. Terrible. He was the first president of the Deutchbank. And as such, there's, you can find this online, that he was actively trying to set aside funds with other high up, prominent German Jews to start a Zionist state as early as the 1880s. So then Bismarck's intention I can't remember Bismarck's play in that, but let me fast forward to after World War II. After World War II, the Allies desperately wanted to start a Zionist state and call it Israel for two reasons. One, obviously, petroleum. They needed to have a foothold in that area in the Middle East to be able to hopefully control the flow of petroleum. And two, they were desperately interested in counteracting the power play that the Russians were trying to do, and in the future the Russians and the Chinese actually, which is happening right now. So in order to do that, you see, it's really hard to convince Jews in Israel to go against Palestinians at that time, right after World War II. Because why? Because there's this thing called a mufti, M-U-F-T-I. And the muftis are Palestinian Arab leaders, spiritual leaders. And at that time, most of the muftis were pretty moderate and liberal. And Jews and Palestinians were living together peacefully without any problem. So it was Mossad, actually Benjamin Netanyahu and his predecessor, who were part of that. They needed to sit down and figure out a way to get over it and make it so that Israelis or Jews and Palestinians didn't get along, so they could have an excuse to go ahead and kick the Palestinians out and kill them or whatever, and give the land to the Jews. So what did they do? Mossad had a plan. The plan was to go and kill, and they did. They assassinated. This is documented historical evidence. Almost all the moderate muftis were killed and assassinated by Mossad, by Benjamin Netanyahu and his predecessor. Okay, now, I mean, this is just like too much. Okay, that they would go and kill the best, most liberal, moderate muftis just to what? To create a Zionist state and to kick the Palestinians out, to have an excuse. Because, see, if you kill all the muftis who are liberal, which ones are left? The conservative ones, the ultra-conservative muftis. So then they were like, oh, these ultra-conservative muftis are bad, we must get rid of the Palestinians, blah, blah, blah. And that's what they did, and that's how they started Israel. And that's how they maintain Israel. They maintain Israel by creating a divide between the people who were already there, the Palestinians, and these mostly imported Jews from other countries. There was never any Jews in Israel at that time, really. They were all imported after the war. They needed to find a place for these refugees and victims from the war to go. And a lot of them wanted to go to Israel. It was like the promised land, right? So now we have this problem where the Jews are being promoted as the owners of the land, when actually the owners of the land were the Palestinians before that. Okay? And Mossad now created Pegasus because it wants to desperately control its own population more than anybody else probably, because they're worried about dissent from within. Okay, and you know, Benjamin Netanyahu may have planned everything that just happened, or he didn't plan it, but he counted on it happening, and he allowed it to happen maybe because it benefits him. Again, this is a replay of what happened right after World War II, with the Zionist state being created and the Jews being given this land. And, you know, I'm going to end with this, and we'll keep it short here. All the money that's been spent, all the billions and billions and billions of fucking dollars spent on Israel, and on the Arab side too, spent on trying to attack Israel. All the billions and billions of dollars since 1947, right? You know what they could have done? They could have gone with all that money and bought the whole continent of South America and just moved there instead of that dry, nasty piece of land that doesn't have any really good purpose. You know, it just doesn't make any sense. Why spend so much money on this little piece of land that's worthless practically, really economically worthless, compared to what they could have done with all those billions of dollars? Instead of buying bombs and guns and bullets and mortars with steel, whatever, they could have just gone and bought the whole continent of South America and moved all the Jews there and given them the real promised land. Leopold Richard Bamberger Alevizos reporting to you on how the Jewish state was formed by killing all of the moderate Palestinian muftis.